Microphone check. Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Simonetta Moro, and I am the director of the Institute for Doctoral Studies in the Visual Arts, a low residence PhD program based in Portland, Maine. Founded by Professor George Smith, who is here with us tonight, focusing on philosophy, aesthetics, and art theory, and based on the idea of nurturing the next generation of artist-philosophers. And it is indeed a pleasure to see so many of our students here in the audience. So thank you all for attending this talk today. I would also like to thank Massimiliano Gioni and the new museum staff for making this event possible, and to everyone in the audience for being here. And of course, my biggest thanks goes to Emilia Kabakov for engaging in a conversation with me on the topic of the artist studio and her collaborative work with Emilia Kabakov. Emilia and Emilia Kabakov are amongst the most celebrated artists of their generation, widely known as pioneers of conceptual painting and installation art. Both Ilya and Emilia Kabakov were born in, I'm going to botch this, Dnepropetrovsk, now Dnipro. Is that correct? Okay. In Ukraine, formerly part of the Soviet Union. And Emilia Kabakov studied at the Art School of Moscow and later at the Surikov Art Institute. Emilia Likach trained as a classical pianist first at a music school in Moscow, then a music college in Irkutsk and Dnepropetrovsk, and studied Spanish language and literature at Moscow University before emigrating to the United States in 1973. Emilia actually has the distinction of being the first person to emigrate from Dnipro. This is the city where her grandfather's family have been living for 400 years. So it's quite an honor. Artists in the Soviet Union were obligated to follow the officially approved style, socialist realism. Wanting to retain his independence, Ilya supported himself as a children's book illustrator from 1955 to 1987, while continuing to make his own paintings and drawings. As an unofficial artist, he worked in the privacy of his Moscow studio, showing his art only to a close circle of artists and intellectuals. He also was one of the main figures and creators of the Moscow conceptualism. Ilya was not permitted to travel outside the Soviet Union until 1987, when he was offered a fellowship at the Graz Kunstverein in Austria. The following year, he visited New York and resumed contact with Emilia. Ilya and Emilia began their artistic partnership in the late 1980s and were married in 1992. Together, they have produced a prolific output of immersive installations and other conceptual works addressing ideas of utopia, dreams, and fear to reflect on the universal human condition. Their work has been shown in the most important museums, galleries, and art biennials worldwide, such as, just to name a few, the Museum of Modern Art, the Hirshhorn Museum in Washington, D.C., the Stedelijk Museum in Amsterdam, Documenta 9, the Whitney Biennial in 1997, and the State Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg, among many others. In 1993, they represented Russia at the 45th Venice Biennale with their installation, The Red Pavilion. The Kabakovs have also completed many important public commissions throughout Europe and have received a number of honors and awards, including the Oskar Kokoschka Prize, Vienna in 2002, and the Chevalier des Arts et des Lettres, Paris, 1995. They also got the prestigious Premium Imperiale from Japan in 2008, which is really the equivalent of the Nobel Prize for the visual arts. In 2014, the documentary film Ilya and Emilia Kabakov, Enter Here, premiered in New York City. And let me add, if I may, a few words of a personal nature. For me, it is a great honor to be on the stage today with Emilia Kabakov. I first met Emilia in person in the summer of 2001, when I was one of the lucky participants in a master art class she taught together with Emilia Kabakov at the Salzburg International Summer Academy of Fine Arts, the venerable institution founded by Oskar Kokoschka in 1953, which was from the beginning an international meeting place for people of diverse origins, age, and background, and a counterpart to traditional national art academies. There was no room in Kokoschka's teaching concept for a dividing line between artistic skills and a comprehensive intellectual and humanistic education. And I say this because it is extremely fitting to the way Emilia and Emilia Kabakov have conceived and developed their work, and also, if I may say, to how IDSVA views the relationship between art and intellectual pursuit. 2 decades later, I included a brief reflection on Ilya and Emilia's thoughts on the themes of utopia, exile, and the imagination in my recent book, Mapping Paradigms in Modern and Contemporary Art, Poetic Cartography, particularly in the last chapter when I address mapping as a process of creation that is inherently nomadic. These themes, utopia, exile, the imagination, as well as others, such as the connection between one personal experience and broader political issues, have remained a constant in their work, and they will be touched upon in our conversation today. A final word. We initially planned this conversation last December with a focus on the artist's life in the studio. This is still the focus of today's conversation, as we think that the themes we'll touch upon are as relevant as ever. However, there are events that happened since then that we cannot ignore. While the world is still reeling from a global pandemic that affected the last 2 years of our lives, a senseless war is ravaging Ukraine. This obviously touches Emilia very close to home, and she has been tirelessly active in humanitarian rescue programs since the start of the war. At the same time, she has publicly defended the artist's right to expression and existence, whatever their nationality, including Russian artists, of course. In the artist studio, there is no place for division, nationalism, or hate. And it's where we begin our conversation. Thank you. So we will, can you hear me? Yes. We will talk, also showing you many slides, and then hopefully there will be time for Q&A. So make sure you have your questions ready. And a few notes. Emilia, welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being here.
I don't know where to start, so forgive me. First of all, Ilya can't publicly come anywhere right now. He doesn't travel, he doesn't come to New York. He still works, but he's almost 90, and that's age. And you try to be at home, try to be comfortable, and just all your energy go for art, for work, which practically is your life. I always said that our work is our life. That's how we live, nothing else exists. We used to travel a lot because public art and installation requires traveling. Mostly now we stay home, and Ilya does paintings, I do everything else, including installations, new public projects, books, publications, so it's enormous amount of work. We live in the United States. We, as you say, we got Premium Imperiale, and everybody who gets Premium Imperiale is a national treasure of Japan. We were born in Ukraine. We live in Moscow, and for practically 50 years, at least I live here, and Emilia also more than 33 years, like a Christ, okay, 33 years here. You wrote a book about mapping, so we're all over the map. I don't know who we are. I don't know where we belong. Are we Russians? Are we Ukrainians? Are we Jewish? Oh, definitely we are Jewish, and that's we know. That's a different story. Are we being Japanese treasure? We are Americans. Everybody always tried to say we are Russian artists. It always was published and printed. I always insisted, no, we're not Russian, we are USSR. Because we were born in the country which doesn't exist anymore. It disappeared from the map, it disappeared from everybody else. Obviously, it didn't disappear from people's memory in Russia. And now the whole story is going complete circle. Ilya was an official artist. It was a very small circle of close friends. They trust only each other, and not even each other sometimes. They show their work only to each other, and nobody else could see it. They didn't have exhibitions. It's completely going back to the same situation right now. Artists either immigrate from Russia, or they just create again this apartment exhibitions. And even exhibitions right now, God knows where, in some small part of Russia, it's not even in Moscow or any big city, which call apartment art. So back to the past, not to the future, to the past.
Emilia, I'm showing the slide with
This is what you see here. It's an apartment exhibition, mostly studio. Ilya's studio was the center of Moscow intellectual life. He was one of the main artists of Moscow conceptualism, one of the creators of Moscow conceptualism. So everybody used to come to his studio, but not everybody, only trusted people. But when I say everybody, I mean musicians, artists, writers, and quite a lot of big figures, not political, but intellectuals of Moscow.
And what I find interesting here is the sense of camaraderie, that people were sharing real intellectual lives. And there is this installation here that Ilya is putting on the floor called Intellectual Screens. And it's very interesting that the first exhibition that Ilya had in New York was at the New Museum in 1990, precisely with those intellectual screens. Why were they called intellectual screens?
Because it's mostly text, because each text is talking about something, and pictures don't reflect the same text, and you have to think to make connection between text, between reality, between fiction, and this idea of finding connection is actually what is Moscow conceptualism. Moscow conceptualism is different from the Western. Western is mostly either objects or text. Moscow also has paintings, a lot of paintings in it. As you can see here, it's my daughter. It's the first time she actually went to Ilya's exhibition, so which I had to do, install, and I was very scared installing it, because I was afraid that somebody was going to steal it. It wasn't secure, New Museum at that time also wasn't a big established institution it is today. It was a small place, everything was open to the public, you can go touch things, and I was nervous doing this exhibition.
You told me that your daughter, who is here 15 years old, became then a scientist, and she's one who developed the vaccine Pfizer, right?
Yes, she's one of the 3 youngest best scientists of the United States, and she's the head of the team which developed Pfizer vaccine. So you see, immigrants are important for this country.
Save your life. So back to this slide. slide, one thing that I notice here, which is also very much part of the concept of Moscow conceptualism, and something that you and Ilya insist upon, is the role of the viewer. And there is this image of closing day of the studio exhibition, which shows, you know, these viewers who are also presumably friends and
Not only friends, yes.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the first Ilya's installations. The first was A Man Who Flew into Space, and this was the second one, 16 strings. There's a garbage, but not only garbage. It's a garbage which accumulated during our life. In this case, it's an artist's life, with the little plates with text. And each text is a reflection on some episode of his life, or memories, or things that he doesn't want to throw away because something sentimental or personal connected to the subject. I just tell a little story. A few years ago, it was an exhibition in Hermitage in St. Petersburg, and I just finished doing this installation. It was right before pandemic, and a woman who was cleaning the floor, she came and looked and she said, "These artists come, they put garbage in the rooms, because there was a table with the garbage. And then foreigners come and they say, these Russians, they live like pigs, they live in the garbage." And I was kind of offended that artwork called garbage. So I come and I said, "Why do you think it's a garbage?" She said, "Look at it, it's a garbage." I said, "Listen, this person lives in this little room. It's a communal apartment, one of the communal apartments. Nobody cares about him. Nobody is going to build him a museum. He died and nobody knows what happened in his life. This is accumulation of his memories. This is not garbage. This is, look at this pencil. With his best friend, drop it. Read the text." So she's standing there reading the text. And then she said, "You know, you're absolutely right. I have a lot of things in my home I don't want to throw out. And my daughter tried to throw out them. It's a book which my husband gave to me when we were young, and there's a dry flower inside." And she said, "Why do you keep this garbage?" So it's not garbage, it's my memories, it's my life. You have to talk to people. That's what actually a museum has to do. In Hirschhorn, in the very beginning, the same 10 characters. And the guy tells me, the guard, "What is it?" And I explain to him what each installation means, how people live in a communal apartment. And he said to me, "They share bathroom and kitchen?" I said, "Yes." "You lying. Nobody lives like this." And then after the opening, director of the museum asked me to come with him to check everything, if everything is okay. We're going through, and the same guard standing in front of a group of visitors explaining how people live in Soviet Union and installations. And I said, "You see, you have to talk to people." And he said, "You see, we're paying him not for this."
Well, what you were saying about the little man and this sort of inner life, and from what you've said in other writings and interviews, it's very much part of the culture of the Russian culture, but also Soviet, and it has to do with perhaps the legacy of literature, as opposed to this sort of mythologizing of the artist in the West as the solitary hero, right? You seem to be much more interested in the common, simple man, the man that nobody really cares for.
It's mostly literature, Russian literature, which concentrates on little men. It's Gogol, it's Chekhov, it's Dostoevsky, mysterious man, which is actually dreaming about big things, live in a fantasy world, but living a very common life because life didn't give him anything better. He's still a little man and he probably died little man, but they're trying to describe him. So Ilya creates this character which is a little man living in a communal apartment, dreaming about bigger things. But interesting is that his dreams always about escapism. It's trying to escape from reality. He's afraid of reality, he hates reality, and that's very well described also Ilya himself. He doesn't know real world, he's afraid of it from the time he was a child, still afraid of it, he still doesn't want to know it. He created imaginary, like his character creates sometimes art 10 albums as the best representational work, and 10 characters of this period. And he created this imaginary art world where he actually lives. So he followed the literature tradition of Russia.
And that's also kind of in contraposition to modernism, at least the way we understand modernism in the West, because I'm actually mostly quoting here from a previous interview. Ilya and also you said that the experience with conceptualism was in opposition to modernism in the sense that conceptualism being more reflective and intellectual is also more humanist. It was a humanist reaction against modernism. Do you think it's because modernism trying to idealize or abstract too much from life?
I think modernism has a very strict form. And I'm not going to talk about other artists, I can't, and I don't think I have a right. But what Ilya does and what we do together, it doesn't have form, really. And maybe it's bad, maybe it's good, I don't know. Maybe it's part of postmodernism. But modernism actually has a very strict, very kind of boundaries, strict boundaries, which we don't. I don't know even how to classify all of these things. We're trying right now to understand the difference between, Boris Groys called it romantic conceptualism, Moscow romantic conceptualism, because it's true, all of Russian works of this period, Soviet, it's very human, very romantic. The man is always in the center of everything that happened and everything which is described in the art, by art. And that's why it's not only text, it's also a lot of images.
Now, we have some early works here. For example, in the room. Should I just show them quickly and you can say?
It's called listening. So it's actually when you are in the room in Soviet Union, everybody listen. Insinuation that it's KGB or whoever is listening, you have to be careful. Even when two people talking in their own bedroom, they have to be careful. So it's kind of artistic representation of life in your own apartment room with somebody listening.
But there's always there is always an ironic.
It's always ironic. It's always multi. There is a lot of layers in this art. You have to know the reality in order to understand completely the levels of degradation, of fear, of oppression, everything that's going on in this country, everything that's going on with every person, and especially with the artists. They're afraid. They're trying to show something true, covering reality, covering what they're saying. So you really have to think. They make you think.
What are we looking at here? There's a list of persons. Who are these persons?
Society in Soviet Union were separated. People having rights and people don't have rights. Actually, living in the West, I think the same thing going on everywhere in the world. There are people who have rights and people who don't have rights. Your position, your race, your religion, a lot of love, your money, social position, emotional, you name it, you have it there. But in this case, there is a gradation. On the left side, people who have rights, I think, on the right side, people who don't have rights, and it's their name. So if you have rights, you can come, put this ballot in this box, wooden box, there's a wooden box, and then you receive something which you have rights to receive. So at that time it was, for that time, it's early 70s, it's a quite strong anti-government, anti-social painting.
And these paintings were never really shown publicly?
Nothing was ever shown, not even one painting was shown in Soviet Union. There was an episode when Ilya brought his albums, 10 albums, to Pushkin Museum. And curator said to him, I will try to show it to the director. She did, and director said, throw it on the street immediately. This is not art, and not in my museum. that was famous Antonova, who runs this museum since the war. And when Ilya comes, the curator called Ilya, tell him, come to pick up your albums. Album was practically really on the stage. Right now they're in Pompidou.
Now we have a series of 3 interesting paintings here. One is called Manufacture.
That's, each painting presents part of society. So it's manufacture, love, government, and I don't know.
Art and state.
Art, yes.
And so what are the images here?
There's images of happy life in Soviet Union, but actually, again, the same thing. You see how it's separate. Each part of this society is represented by government, which represent and let you do and exist only in your part. You either belong to the government, you either represent the state, and so on.
I want to read a passage that I found quite interesting. This is from an interview with Anton Vidokler. Ilya here is reflecting, the interview was with both of you, reflecting on the theme of separation from one's cultural environment and the role of the imagination, which is very important for you. And at some point, he says, for the introvert, it doesn't matter whether he lives in America or Europe. Your homeland is the cultural field. It is always in your imagination. It continuously functions and produces. That is the fate of people who are detached from actual cultural phenomena. They are involved only with their own imagination. For the introvert, 3 components are important: memory, fantasy, and reflection. All of these are described as formulas of cultural production: memory about culture, reflection on culture, and imagination of returning to that time. So this idea of homeland as a cultural field seems particularly important for you and crucial today, given the, the fact that you don't live in your original country, you reflect from the point of view of an immigrant, and at the same time, this is your country now. So how do you see yourself negotiating all these different homelands, and which one is home in the end?
Home is where we live now, where our families, where our friends are, because that's your life. Ilya and I are a little bit different in how we accept life and how we deal with it. He always lived in an imaginary world, as I said before. His life is imagination. You can separate, there are different types of artists, I would say. There are artists who work only from imagination and reality. Even if people think they reflect on reality and they depict reality, it's not true. It's also fantasy. Sometimes they can guess reality or predict reality. It's very strange, but it happens very often. So Ilya is one of these artists. They are artists who live and work only from reality. And that's also legally acceptable, even if we don't like some kind of art of this type anymore. There are artists who are reacting on politics and social changes today. And there are artists who live for the future. They live in a complete different world. Surrealist. It's not real, but that's how they live. That's what they imagine. Their imagination works this way. I am I don't know, as long as I remember myself, my world was music in the beginning. I started music at 3 years old. So everywhere I go, music was always sound in my head, poetry and music. And then art, visual art, kind of integrated it also. So the moment I say something, I already imagine this. If somebody offers something, I already have this imagination. Ilya, different, you leave him, I always was joking, you leave him in a room for 30 minutes, he come up with complete installation, including plans, design, technical things, done. The only thing left is to actually make it. So that's how we work. It's like a combination.
We have some pictures of Ilya in his studio now, but there is this painting, actually 2 paintings, which I find quite intriguing. These are more recent works, right? And they seem to me to also sort of demonstrate this reflection upon culture and memory of another time, because this work seems to play with fragments that come from personal images and also images from the history of Western art, Baroque art. You want to say something about how these different worlds collide and why there never seems to be a resolution?
In the beginning, as we can say, there's a lot of political nuances, there's a lot of reflexes on the life and desire to escape from this life and from this reality. That was how he started as an artist. Then he suddenly moved into his imaginary paradise. We used to have a lot of very provocative and negative replics from public and from journalists, especially when they said, Ilya, you said that West is a paradise. West is not paradise, it's hell actually. And they didn't understand. He's not talking about real life, real West. He's talking about this enormous river of culture which keep flowing in the West, uninterrupted. It's a cultural paradise. He didn't live in this kind of country. He lived in a country when everybody was suppressed, especially art, especially writers, musicians. They didn't have freedom of expression. For him, first time come to the West, being able, and he was 54 years old when he came, to show his work, to be free to say what he wants to say in his art. It was a paradise. And for all these 20 years practically, he enjoys this paradise. We had probably more exhibitions than anybody in the world. One of the German curators said to me, do you know how many exhibitions you have a year? 45, 40. You're crazy. Nobody does so many exhibitions. Why do you need so many? I said, first of all, he never had it before. So he's kind of trying to get what he lost in his life. And secondly, did you ever see us doing a bad exhibition? No? Don't tell me, it's too many. What happened now? He's staying home. He's not traveling anymore. He doesn't watch TV because he has some kind of nervous disorder, which I am afraid to let him watch TV, especially with the war going on. And his imagination and his memories are only cultural memories, turn into the past. What he's trying to build is a bridge between old art and what he's imagined that probably will be either now or maybe in the future. So you can see a lot of realistic images, you can see Baroque, old masters. He changed them, he doesn't copy them, it's a little bit of change there. But some art critics immediately recognize when it's taken from which artist is which picture. When people ask me which painting exactly, which artist he copied, I don't want to answer. You know, if you know, you know. If you don't, it's not necessary actually to pinpoint. And that's the world he lives now. He reads, unfortunately he reads only Russian, so it's about artists' biographies, it's about art. It's what critics wrote about this art, what artists wrote themselves about the art. He looked at the pictures, and it's about what he imagining now. I'm not going to comment on these pictures because one of our galleries, when the other galleries asked him, what do you think about these paintings? And this was like depiction of Christ and Mother of Christ on the painting, which was a kind of reflection of the old Baroque painting. The other gallery said, explain why do I have to like this? I don't. Because he was a gallerist who represent completely different kind of art. He's not used to these images. For him, this is blasphemy and contemporary art. So I'm not going to explain this in details what it means. You either accept this and you start looking at it. I personally think it's a very interesting what he's doing right now. Maybe some of the paintings are the best that he ever did. And he never stopped doing paintings and making paintings. There is a conception that what we did only communal apartments, Soviet reflection of Soviet time, and installation. That's not so. There is approximately 1,000 paintings during all his life, never stopped doing. What he did, he put paintings into installation. And doing the same thing now. We just sent installation from 5 paintings. It's a room with paintings. You will see some of them here. It's still paintings, but it's still installation always. We try to install.
We'll go to some of those installations later. There are some slides about that. I just want to throw this idea, which has still to do with mapping, and forgive me for going on about this, but would you agree that these are sort of figurative atlases of 20th century, actually not just 20th century, but really a Western imagination? The way he puts all these things together and makes almost this sort of map of different fragments of memory.
It's a history. History is a documentation, always, and we have to keep it for the future, because continuation of cultural history, that's what keeps us human. The moment we lose it, we are not people anymore, I think. That's my personal opinion. Mapping, you can map everybody, you can map person emotionally, physically, any way you want. And the same with the painting, and the same with the art. We try to place artists by their country, by their culture, and you can call it remnants of colonial practice, or I don't even know how to call it, but you know what? We live in a period of globalization all these years, and it's interactive. Everybody interacts in every country. The best artists travel all the time. They look at the other art. I don't remember time when good artists didn't look what the other good artist is doing. Because you compare yourself always. Am I better? Am I worse? Am I doing the right thing? They're never sure they are the best. And that's actually the best artist.
I want to show more images from the studio, because here we come to this other interesting concept, which in fact has informed one of your most recent grand installation exhibitions in Dallas Contemporary last year. This idea of paintings about paintings. So this always seems to be a reflection. Perhaps if in the early works the paintings were part of installations, in this case the painting becomes part of another painting, and you create an installation within the painting.
Installation is a painting. It's absolutely obvious. Installation itself is a painting. Even if you put object, you put music, you put voices, you put people there, it's still a painting. Because it depends from which point you look. The way when we try to make installation, when you walk in, we imagine the viewer. When he walks in, he has to be inside the painting. The difference is you stand in front of the painting, or installation you are inside the painting. In this way, there is a painting inside the painting, but actually everything is a reflection of the old master. Again, we're in the studio of the artist, where artist is doing another painting. There's other painting on the wall. In this case, it's a different painting. You will see some variation of this painting. And I wouldn't say we install painting. I would say we install installation always as a painting, and painting as an installation, because it's absolutely, in a way, very similar. You can make it similar, Jen.
And you mentioned some important and maybe also recognizable references. Velázquez, Las Meninas, for instance,
Yes.
one of those famous
It's
paintings
absolutely, yes.
within paintings. And Courbet, Gustave Courbet at the Artist Studio.
Yeah, but this is Velázquez. This was actually...
But today I had another association, because I went to see, at the MoMA there is a new exhibition of Matisse Red Studio. And what they did is very interesting, because they almost exploded the painting to include all the paintings that are represented in the painting. So you see the Artist Studio of Matisse, and then in the room around it, all the paintings contained. So they almost Kabakov the Matisse, I would like to say.
I didn't see, I can't.
It's the influence. But what I find interesting is that you, at some point you said, something has happened here which is different from what Velázquez does. And that's precisely because of the role of the little girl in the painting.
Well, there is Meninas when there is a girl. There is our granddaughter, which always paints with you, Ilya. So, it's a, I don't know.
She's a painter. She's a painter.
She wants to be a painter. I don't know. She's too small to be a painter. We'll see. You never know what's going to happen later. But she, when she was small, there was a little episode. She was like 3 years old. She was working in the studios, and she looked at her painting. Then she went to look at Ilya's painting. Then she took his chair and took it to her painting and started painting. Then she looked again at his painting, took back the chair and took his brush. Started working. Didn't work out. So she took his brush, his chair, took it to his painting and started painting on his painting. Much easier.
And what was the story that she wanted oil painting and he said no? Too young for oil.
Yeah, she said enough. I want oil. You work with oil and I work with oil. And he said, you're too young. So she went to me and she said, where do you have to study to paint like Ilya? She refused to study with him.
So there are different variations on this thing.
It's different variation. Ilya from the very beginning was working with white. And I asked him a few days ago, can you tell me the difference when you start working with white and what you're doing now? Because you will see you will see here few, but we actually have a lot of paintings with white. It's separated, it's in different position, but white is start dominating or being combined with different images. In the beginning it was either pure white, 60s, 70s was white with some images, and I knew that in the beginning because I was in the Moscow studio at that time. I was very young, but I used to come to studio. And he told me that he see depthness in this white. So for him, disappearing into the cosmos or disappearing into the white page was the same. There's a lot of possibilities, different world. You can do anything you want inside the white. But it's also scary because you don't know what happened there inside the page of the white page. What's now? Now he said, I don't know, it starts dominating me. It's in front of me. I either has to agree that I go into the white light or I go into the dark. And so you can see this separating. It's a light on the painting, it's a white space on the painting. It's all the paintings right now have some configuration of white color.
Yeah, there is one in particular. Okay, these are some images from the actual studio with the painting. What is?
That's Dallas exhibition. Dallas Museum, Dallas Contemporary, it's actually not a museum, it's a huge space, like a warehouse, used to be a warehouse. And our idea was to make it like an old-fashioned museum. We started working, recreating old-fashioned museum. We did it before, but this time it was a museum which continued of different, like a little retrospective. And it works very well. People were crying, they were sitting. You give them possibility to stand in front of each painting and actually reflect at what is there, which was actually done in old museums. People will sit, they will look at the painting. They don't take selfies all the time, because what I discovered that some girls come, stand, take selfie, go to, and then she walk out. I said, you already saw? Yes, I already done. Gone, because she took selfies on all important paintings and artists. She was there, she can prove on internet that she was there. In this space, you just relax. You see the world of the artist. And reflection is that it somehow reverberates with you, your inner problems, your fears, your dreams. Each person, each visitor can find something for themselves. I had director of some Japanese museum, private collection at the museum in Dallas. She came with me, and it wasn't done yet, exhibition, but one room with, they built in the cupola. It was space like probably this room with the parts of white paintings, some images, a lot of white, and circles. Benches, which originally I rejected because they were shiny silver. Some designer gave it as a present to this warehouse, to this museum. But when they come in and the light was right and the color, all of a sudden they add something to exhibition. I wouldn't believe if somebody tell me and shows them to me separately, but inside they made sense. They fit right in, completely out of context of this museum space. I don't know how this happened. Visually and emotionally, they were belonging to the space. And music was there, and she started crying. She was sitting there and crying. I decided not to ask why, but emotionally, obviously, something called to her in this room. So we have this situation very often. People walk in and they read the text. Although it's about Russia, it's about somebody else they don't know, but they feel something personal. You appeal to their personal feelings. And that's how installation is supposed to work.
This one in particular seems to elicit a lot of uncomfortable
It's a reflection of some old, he will never come back, old paintings. I don't remember who's the artist. I was thinking it's Repin, but it's not Repin.
Again, there are two.
It's combination, yes.
Combination of image from 20th century and then Baroque.
Baroque, yes. And with the objects also.
This one is a series where you have this sort of fake reflection.
It's called the light on the beam of light in the museum. So we did this, and in order to this light seems interesting and very well presented, I asked the museum director to cover the windows on the top of the room. On the top of the room, on the wall, there were a series of windows, and sun come through. So they covered it with black paper. It took 3 days to cover it. At the moment we're standing in front of this painting, all of a sudden piece of the paper come off and the sun come directly in this space. I would call it a miracle, but I don't know what it was.
So again, the paintings play with this sort of illusion of the reflection,
Yes.
which goes back to the origins of painting when ancient painters used to paint flies or things that would trick the viewer.
So, yes.
And this is again where you use this white
Yes,
strategy.
that's what I was talking about. There are different sizes, there are different images, but there's always part of it white.
Is there a reference to Malevich, famous white square?
Maybe. You can think, everybody can think anything they want, you're always right. That's your right. It's a free country, so use your imagination and knowledge.
Or maybe it has to do with that criticism of, painting as a totality that can never be.
Possible.
Now, I find this very intriguing because at some point you invented a character, Charles Rosenthal, and he has his own paintings. What kind of artist is he?
Who?
Charles Rosenthal.
It's a long story. We invented this character and wrote his biography, so maybe I should tell you his biography for the people who didn't see the exhibition. Charles Rosenthal was a student of Malevich and Chagall. Jewish, born, I don't remember when he was born, a long time ago. And he was pro pro-Soviet. He loves revolution. He was thinking it's the future and a lot of energy. And actually, if you look at Russian constructivists, their work has a lot of energy of this period. People were building the future, they believe in it. Unfortunately, we had to live with this future they built, which wasn't very nice. And he was painting all these colorful paintings. He used a lot of white. But his eyes weren't good, or he was disappointed in this construction of the future. And so he started painting, by the end, white painting, and his some last works are actually boxes with light, like Donald Judd construction. And then he went to Paris. Of course, he immigrated from Soviet Union. 1923, he died on Montmartre. Under the car was accident. 1923, Emilia Kabakov was born. So it's not only Rosenthal, it's a continuation of three characters. Kabakov was born in Soviet time. He knows perfectly what the system is. He hates the system. So his paintings are mostly black. Some of them colorful, and he has some hopes. The rest of them are going darker and darker and darker, and the last are really, really black. And then the third artist, Igor Spivak, Ukrainian, strangely. And he makes paintings which is half of them image and half of them kind of invisible or blurred, so you can't really say what is there. And the reason for this was, we can say that was his invention. Critics used to say that that's because he was always drunk. Or you can say because at that time when he was an artist, in Soviet Union there was not enough toilet paper. And people use newspapers, but they rip them off. So he always has half of the painting, half of the text, half of the drawing, never the full picture, just the half of it. And he made only 15 paintings and then he disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to him. So that was three characters.
I find interesting that in the catalog for this painting, we read, part of the text is about a dream of Marco Polo, which he tells to the Doge of Venice, and then you go into fragments of conversations overheard at an auction. So it's an interesting connection between a merchant from the 13th century and an auction house.
This actually is installation. It's it's a room installation with two paintings. One is an auction, which is the West, representing a famous auction in Moscow when the Western auction house first time to Russia, 1988, I think, and artists suddenly understood that their work worth money. There is some money in it. Somebody wants. It wasn't only about money. It was that somebody appreciates your work. They do want your work, and they actually pay money for it. They were very surprised, including Ilya also. And but then also there is a value of this art. It costs money. It's about money. So when you push the button on this installation, you can see the text. You read the text, and there's different thoughts what people sitting at the auction think. So when you push the button, there is a system behind the painting, which is make canvas semi-transparent. Light goes on in the head of the people. So when the light's going on, for example, the auctioneer head, you see the skull, not the head. It actually takes different shape. When you see the light in some people and you push the button, you read this text like this. Why did they put these shoes on? They're so tight. I can't concentrate on the sound. The other, do you think this painting worth any money? My painting would worth much more because it's so much better. If I buy this painting, can I resell it for better? How long I have to wait to make more money on it? And so on and so on. So this is a value of culture transferred into money. Then the next painting. That's two paintings in the room. And this is East. And East is the story. Marco Polo has a dream. And in this dream, he has the three strangers on the horses who come in front of him, and they told him to go in the East so he can find the soul of humanity there, because it's not about money. It's a contradiction between two paintings. It's not about money, it's about soul. It's about culture. It's about something different, which is much more on a higher level of human life than just material things. And so Marco Polo go to Doge, they help him to get to the east to find the soul. So he didn't come to find treasures, he came to find the soul. So it's the same thing. When you push the buttons, what's going on different parts of the painting, and you read this text, little pieces of this text which I told. That's the most popular installation I ever had, which we present, because children and everybody, doesn't matter of age, love pushing the buttons. Interactive. It was done a long time ago, before interactions.
Now we have perhaps the most well-known installation of the so-called installation period. So The Man Who Flew into Space, this is from 1984. Perhaps it's the one that really made the installation sort of become popular in the West, right? It's
few installations which actually defined what Ilya did, and what we're doing. It's one of them is The Man Who Flew into Space from his apartment. The translation actually would be from his room, because this man didn't have an apartment, he had a room. And the story, for the people who doesn't know, it's a very famous installation. This little man, one of these characters, and from 10 characters, he want to escape. Again, it's escapism. He built in his room catapult because he thinks that somewhere in cosmos, in space, there is a physical power or something which is streaming by, and if he calculate correctly, when he go through this catapult in this cosmos, he will go far away and start maybe to another planet or whatever. Means he escaped from Soviet Union. And that's become one of the trademarks. Everywhere when people write books or they reproduce this one. And the second one is the toilet. I want to tell a little story about this one because it's really funny. Okay. If anybody remembers, there was this exhibition in, I believe, in 2008 at Guggenheim called Russia. And Putin came to open this exhibition because it was a lot of art from Russia, including pre-revolutionary period icons, and the whole exhibition ended with this installation. And they asked me to take Putin through exhibition. And I said I wouldn't mind taking him, but I don't want to be in the same picture, so I am not going to do it. But I went behind, director of Tretьяков Museum went with him, and I was curious. Okay, she can explain icons, she can explain Repin, she can explain even a lot of contemporary art. How she's going to explain this installation? They come close, they come in, he looked at it and she said, Vladimir Vladimirovich, and this is the most famous Russian artist, Emilia Kabakov. And this is his most famous installation. And it's about that. This was the part which I was waiting for. How she's going to escape? He wants to escape from Soviet Union. And she said, this is about us, Russian people, because this person loves God so much that he built this catapult in order to escape and be closer to God. Brilliant. I won't come with better story.
This is the famous toilet, which was very controversial.
This is the famous toilet, which was done for Documenta 9.
That's the inside of it.
Russians hate this installation. They always, when we give a lecture and show this installation, absolutely always somebody stand up and said, why did you depict us Russians living in the toilet? We don't live in the toilet. And when we did it, I think it was 1992, 93, 92. A long time ago. I mean, who cares about only Russia? I would start explaining, listen, this is not about you. Not everything in this world is about you. It's a metaphor of life. Yes, we live in a country which is a toilet. Something happened, it's a toilet of the country, but we can live very comfortable life in this country, which is exactly what it is. Look at it. There is carpets on the wall, floor is earth, but there is everything you need. Even the toilet holes, they accommodate, and there is a children place, and the strings with they hang clothes on it to dry, photographs. So, did you understand metaphor of life? Yes, I understand, but we don't live in a toilet.
The problem of literalism. The problem of literalism. This is the Red Pavilion, which was the installation for the Biennale.
First time in 1992, Venice Biennale. It's the first time Russia decided to represent, since God knows what time, before 1930s probably. It's a very famous pavilion by Shusin, Russian architect, Soviet architect. Was in terrible condition. We received a call at 3 o'clock at night, and the Minister of Culture of Russia called us and said, Ilya, we choose you to represent Russia at Venice Biennale, but we don't have any money. And that was the whole call. And we were sleeping, it was 3 o'clock at night, and I said, that's all the money they had for this call. So we start raising, we raised money, we got students, and because we couldn't afford even to hire somebody, we start building this installation. What it is, Russian pavilion was in a terrible, you understand, nobody was there, no windows, broken floors. We pretend that we're doing restoration. We put scaffolding inside. We put garbage outside, which I had a lot of problem with, because everybody at Biennale, people who work there, they love me. They clean our garbage right away, and it was part of installation. So we had to clean it again. Finally, I ended up put my 2 daughters sitting on it every morning, so they don't take it away. Inside, outside was this fence, you see. Inside, scaffolding, very dark, paint everywhere, boxes with some pieces of, garbage. But then there's like a corridor. And if people hear music at that time, we didn't tell anybody, including the Venice people, what we're gonna do. Not to Russian. We said, we repair and then we do some installation. And they trust us, they just let us go because they didn't have a choice, there was nobody else to do it. If people walk inside, a lot of people didn't, they said Russians, they never finished. Look at the garbage, look at the fence. They didn't enter. But people who finish, they go inside and they start walking. What we did at the moment when press journalists come and it's open, the president of Italy was supposed to go to the best pavilions later. We built this little pavilion with the representation of Soviet Union. The general idea was, yes, Soviet Union dismantled, it disappeared. But watch, it's coming back. Someday, it's just waiting there in the back of Russia to come back. So main pavilion represented Russia, Red Pavilion represented all paraphernalia of Soviet. You see stars, you have flags. On the top, there's 3 loudspeakers. And the moment they open for visitors and for press, we put the whole, through the whole Venice sound of parade and Red Square. Nobody expects this. So when people come outside, through this corridor, through the pavilion, they come to the beautiful terrace, they see this Venice, this pavilion, and there is Red Square military parade. So they were given, doing this, they were laughing, they were everything. And the president didn't come because security said it's too dark for him to come. And a Russian ambassador who was standing waiting, holding his hand for the president, he said, you always do some kind of shit, and left. We didn't get, actually, we were supposed, there was a debate, I know that for sure, somebody told me that we were supposed to get Golden Lion, and one of the curators who was in the commission, he said, don't give them Golden Lion, because they, again, it's about Soviet Union. It's in the past. It's never come back. We have to do things contemporary. Look what happened now. It's back.
We're looking at the future.
Yeah. Sometimes I said artists can predict future, even if we don't realize it at that time.
But here is kind of when it gets interesting with the theme of utopia, right? It's a Palace of Project.
Yes, and as I said, people think we still work with Soviet images, ideas. It's not so. For many, many years, since probably 1995, we work with utopian projects. So this is a Palace of Projects. It was presented in New York also. It started in England, then New York, then Spain, and ended up in Germany. In some foundation government bought it. And it has 65, as you can see, it's kind of constructivist structure, semi-transparent material, light only directed from outside. Inside there is no light. People go and there are 65 models, how to make the 3 ideas, how to make yourself better, how to make the world better, and how to increase creativity. So little tables with the projects by common citizens, common people, trying to make the future better, or himself better, or something to make this world better. They're comical, they're ironic, they're sad, like there is a project for the jail, the whole world have to be separated in different spaces, which looks like a jail, but that will be order in the world. There is how to make horse to come down the steps. You know, the horse can't come down the steps. So you get her upstairs on the building, and then neighbors start calling police and screaming at you, and you have to be very creative. It's increasing your creativity to get this horse down. So things like this. Also, there was like, for example, a little basket, and it was hanging from the ceiling, and a little money there. And it was saying, I put some money there, and note, could you please buy me bread and butter and take the change? It comes from Ilya's past. When he was living in Moscow, his studio, he was too lazy to go down to the store to buy food. So he would put the basket down, and people did buy him bread and milk and took the money. So it was very funny. And the next day, it opened in England, Manchester. There was money disappears that were put, but there was little money from all over the world, different currency. And a lot of projects like this. So that's this one, this project. And it's now, as I said, it's in Germany, and it's closed for the public. And when I ask people who own the space, it's a foundation, government foundation, why don't you let public in? And they said, it's not for us, it's for the future generation.
This is an image of the strange city.
It was in New York and Armory on 26th Street.
And then it was also the Grand Palais.
And then we did 2014 Grand Palais in Paris. We built a strange city, also utopian city. Looks like a very wide space, walls, inside 7 buildings, 2 of them with a white and dark chapel, and the rest different installation. How to meet an angel. Empty museum where there's only music, and empty spaces of light. Light in places where there's supposed to be painting, but there's no painting. Paintings are in your imagination. You have to imagine whatever you want. But the spaces actually look like a museum. And so on. City of the future. I mean, different things. I told people who were working with us to print text on the entrance. At the entrance was supposed to be explanation. And we printed it for the visitors. Instructions. You enter the strange city. No telephone, no selfies, no loud conversation. Because, you know, it's a tourist place. And the director of Grand Palais ran to me, he said, are you kidding me? What do you mean no selfies? We have a competition for selfies. And I said, you know, trust me, they're going to take selfies, but it was going to be transformed God knows what position, and you will have the best competition you ever had. So that's actually what happened.
Was this part of the...
This is a white chapel. What you see is not white walls, it's 78 paintings there with some images. creating a chapel. You sit there, you contemplate the world, it has to be very quiet. In order to make people not to talk, we put sound of bells, church bells. In Russia there's different music for bells, and that's purple bells or something like this. I found it. And it's very low sound, so people stop talking because they want to listen what exactly is it. And we create atmosphere, very specific atmosphere which we want to create. And second is a dark chapel. Here you can see it. We actually, where we live, on Long Island, we built this building and we have dark chapel there. It's supposed to be 6 painting and atmosphere of the church, of chapel. And we recreate in Grand Palais exactly the same size to buildings. So you can imagine this is the biggest space in Europe. People who work, they either drive little cars or bicycles. I was walking. It helped me a lot. I lost a lot of weight there.
This is the one of the angels themed.
Again, so we work a lot with the angels, and I'm invited on Long Island right now by the church to talk about angels. And frankly, I don't know what to say about angels. It's one thing to work with angel idea, and it's another to talk about it in the church. This is how to make yourself better. You make angel wings. You put them in a closet, and once in a while you take them out, you wear them for a while, and then you go and do good things. So you be an angel. You don't wait for an angel to come. You be an angel to other people. Just be careful not to show them to anybody because they can put you in mental institution.
And I think you have to sit for at least 10 minutes.
Whatever. Each has his own.
Instructions are quite
yes.
specific.
It's a very popular. We did exhibition, everything about angels in Ireland and then in Mexico City. And in Ireland, I was walking around with my granddaughter, and everybody was stopping me, Mrs. Kabakov, you brought us angels, because everything was about, all projects was like 15, 20 projects about angels, drawings, sculptures, installations, outside was a fallen angel. And you brought us angels, we need angels. In Mexico, everybody wants to take a picture with me with the background of the angel. And then very interesting things, they had garbage people in the car, and car has wings of angel, with the image of angel, actually done physically, not just painting. Angels, and the garbage men were angels. I don't know how this happened, that was a coincidence.
This is a bigger installation, it's a detail.
This is installation How to Meet an Angel. It's actually built in Germany, it's built in Amsterdam permanently. It was built in Moscow, didn't help, as you can see. And it was, now it's one in Austria for 5 years alone. You have to be desperate. You build this ladder, which is a reference to Jacob ladder. And you have to take some food with you, because you don't know how long you have to wait for the angel. And you go up, and you wait there, an angel will come to save you. So, again, every installation has a story, I'm sorry. When we built it in Moscow, it was commissioned by Abramovich. And he said, but he saw the model. And in the model, we have angel hanging from this glass, because it's in a glass. And he said, I love this installation, but I want angel also. I said, Roman, how are we going to hang the angel? There's 2 ways. Either you call God and ask him to send the angel, or we build the glass and cover for this. Why? I said, because there is no angel. And then I'm sitting with Ilya and I said, we have to make an angel. He said, what do you mean we have to make an angel? So I come up with the idea, we made a drone. We put little drone in the very light material angel. And we made it in Austria, sent it to Moscow. And so once a day, 2 or 3 times a week, the angel was flying around trying to save the man. Guess what? It worked only for 1 week. Because then They said it's dangerous. Angels are dangerous.
There is also some interesting, my own association with Monument of the Third International. This particular inclination, I know that has a significance.
Monument to tolerance. Yes. We had a project some years ago, I don't remember, maybe 7, 8 years ago. BBC in London was building a new building, and they commissioned us to build something. We decided to do Monument to Tolerance on the building. And the idea was, it's a figure of a woman holding 4 shapes of women, like 4 religions, main religions, 4 continents together. Idea of unity, of tolerance. We change color according to the mood in the world. So when the news are good, it's BBC, it's going to be light colors, positive colors. When it's negative, it will be negative colors. BBC changed their mind, they didn't do it, and they put some antenna, which is okay, I think, also help. We offered last year to Dnipropetrovsk, city when we were born in Ukraine. And some collector was supposed to pay and build. We have drawings for it, it's very beautiful, with a pedestal from stones and figures on the top. And then he said, no, I don't like this, I don't want it. Fine. I offered it to Japan during the pandemic. Japanese built it in 1 year. So right now, it's in the Chigutsumari in Japan. It's the public most, they voted it the best sculpture in Japan by the public vote. It changed color according to the mood of local people. So they have to tell how they feel, if it's a good weather or bad situation. It's farmers, it's a very poor region, and they're all farmers. The first time we come there, we were the first artists who come to this region, we built rice field. It's 5 figures of people harvesting rice, 5 periods of making rice. Not this one, this one, as you can see. It's fiberglass, very colorful. And they later wrote us a letter saying, thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Kabakov. Nobody presented our life and our work as colorful as you. So we did this, and then a few years later, they come to the mayor of this region, and they ask if the Kabakovs are coming. It become very big art space, festival, triennale, and they said, no, Kabakovs are not coming. We want Kabakov again. So they come to us and they ask us to give them another installation, which is the 5 steps of life, the arch of life. It's a few of them. And the arch of life have 5 steps of life. So the first one is the egg. It has 2 faces. One which is still sleeping, and another with the open eyes, it's life starting to flow, waking up. Second is the man, is a boy who is standing on his knees. He's afraid of life, and he presents the face of a lion to scare everybody. The third one is a man carrying light and life on his back. The next one is eternal immigrant. Originally, this figure was supposed, a man climbing over the wall. It's about immigrants. He tries so much to escape that he got stuck on this wall. It was like Berlin Wall. And emotionally, he stayed there for such a long time that emotionally, physically, he started melting on this wall. So that's monument to immigrant. And the last one is a man lying down because the life, or the box with life, is so heavy, he died. So that's Arch of Life. We have also 5 steps of life with the same figures, which was used for the opera in Berlin as a design for the stage here. The composer came to us, he said he saw the pictures and he wanted to use it for his opera. And we let him do this. So that's also on a big scale. The egg separately as a monument exists in Korea, in Seoul, on the mountain. And monument to eternal immigrant, we hope to build somewhere. Cupola It was designed for St. Francis d'Assise opera by Messiaen, French composer from 1920. It was in Bochum in Germany first. This is the idea of 1920s, light and sound. So the cupola has 2,000 lamps. It changes colors according to sound. It's a computer program. Here you see these monks with St. Francis on the stage. And here it's in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia last year commissioned this piece, and they put it next to the museum, but it was standing in front of a mosque. So it's a big square in front between mosque and museum in Riyadh, and the cupola was standing there, which actually was done for St. Francis d'Assise. So I put some music, which was kind of not really religious, but religious, and I don't know, it was standing there for 3 months, very popular, very good reviews, so acceptable by all religions.
Which is also the spirit that informs.
And I think that that's monument to tolerance. You can see here, we changed light in Japan. And that's the last project, right?
This is the last project, yes, pretty much, because we have, and I know this is very dear. This is very dear.
Tired, probably. Okay, this is a ship of tolerance. We start this project in Siva, Egypt, in a very religious Berber community, when girls get married when they are 12 years old and never see street again. They kept in the houses. We work with children. They ask us to do some project with children. We come up with the idea of wind. The original wasn't the ship of tolerance, was the ship of wind. The trade, knowledge, cultures, trade started with the ships before we had planes. So children at school made drawings on pieces of paper, of material, artificial silk, and this drawing was supposed to be about ships. So that was Siva. Later, when I saw how the children interact, we had English students. So the girls, who was like 10, 11, they were making eyes at these boys, trying to kind of entice them. And they were all covered, practically. The boys would start playing soccer with them, local boys. They actually were interacting, they were without language. So art works this way, music, art, painting, they were together. And we decided we're going to do Ship of Tolerance. So we did Venice Biennale with Venice children. We always try to find schools where there are problems, racial, immigrants, parents, I don't know, anything. But we let children give their expression through the drawings. We put them all around the city. We did for 17 years now, a lot of projects in different countries. I'm not going to name all the countries, I just said that we were the first in 2011 who brought American children to Cuba. I went twice to Cuba, I spoke to the government, and I convinced them that it's important for the children, Cuban children, to be free. And for this, they have to communicate with American children. It's not political. It's not about you, it's not about me, it's about kids. You want them to be free citizens of the world. Let's just do the project. They let me do the project. Cuban children make drawings. We put them all around the city in Havana. People were meeting me on the street, coming and telling me, Mrs. Kabakov, thank you for bringing this project with us. We are more Americans than Americans. Why they don't want us? It was very emotional, very interesting. The boys who helped us build, because we brought carpenters from England, who always build the ship, they come to me and they said, it was a fantastic experience for us. They're 17, 18 years old. Can you come next year and build the plane? I said, why? Because we want to escape. That's Cuba's story. It took me 6 months to convince American State Department to give us permission to take American children to Cuba. Because we organized concert together between Cubans and Americans, they played together, and Russians. And practically in the last 2 days, they didn't give us permission, said we're not gonna let it happen. I called State Department and I said, listen, make my day. You're gonna make all the press around the world. Because Russians let children come, Cubans let us build the wall, the ship and use children. Americans doesn't let American children come. That's about tolerance. The most tolerant country in the world. We got permission. And we took, I think, 11 or 12 American children to Cuba. For them, it was very interesting experience. For the first time, it was New York LaGuardia School, music school. For the first time, they understood that not everybody lives like people live here. They didn't have toilet paper, they didn't have water in the toilet, they didn't have music instruments, strings, so we brought everything there. We brought the whole ship of diapers, all kind of things, saying this is a part of installation, and give it to people, left it there. But for us also it was a very interesting experience. Then we made it in Miami. And in Miami, when I said we're doing it in Cuba, the people said they're going to burn the ship. They didn't, but the ship stayed in Miami only 4 days. They took it away. And it was very, one of those ex-Cubans, immigrants, Cuban immigrants, very powerful woman, I'm not going to name her, she's a big name. She called me here and she said, "You're going to talk to Stalin and Hitler?" I said, "Yes, I would." Because maybe they wouldn't be Stalin and Hitler if somebody talked to them before they become this way. So I'm not going to talk to Castro because it's too late for him, he's dying. But I will talk to people. And she called me names. I flew to Miami from New York. We sit for 4 hours. I took my granddaughter and said, that's how you negotiate with people. That's how you talk to people. And we sit for 4 hours. We talk about the project. We talk about people. Her granddaughter participated in the project, and she's my best friend.
We have 2 more images, I think. One is the last strike.
This is the last installation. It's a monument to the lost man. It's just done recently. There was 2 years ago idea to make a joint cultural exhibition between France, Germany, and Russia. It was done by 3 presidents, German, Russian, French. It was supposed to be first in Germany, then France, and then last in Russia, or first in Russia. It didn't happen in Russia at the time, it was in Germany. Then it went to Russia. It was presented at Tretyakov Gallery recently, before they start war with Ukraine. There is a man, last wave in the ocean, he tried to survive. And there are angels, projection, which come to save him. So angels again. It's a strong installation. After Germany sent it to Russia. It's a big exhibition, the 70 or 80 international artists all over. For me, it was very interesting also to notice one thing. There were practically no Moscow artists. There were everybody from regions, Russian regions, Tatars, Uzbeks, Georgians, everybody, Ukrainians, but not Russia, not Moscow, not from Russia. I don't know why it happened. And it was good exhibition, very well accepted. War started. And they sent it out. The Germans demanded to immediately send it out. French refused the exhibition. So what to do with this installation? Bring it here? What I'm gonna do? We have a lot of installation and storage. One more, I just can't afford anymore. So I didn't know what to do. It's on the way from Russia to Germany. Germans supposed to send it to us, return it. I called Switzerland Museum and I said, here is the installation coming from Russia. Would you like it? He said, right now, how much it costs? I said, free. He said, yes. So next week I'm going to Switzerland to install. It's going to be there now.
The model, because you always make models.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the last image.
And this is the last. If anybody speaks Russian, it says, excuse my language, go fuck yourself. It's Russian ships, and behind there is this words. The parody is, the irony of life is. This is 1983 drawing and print. So it was done in 1983. Somebody just discovered it, put it on the internet, it's everywhere. A museum in Lithuania called me and said, can we make postcards on it? And when it appeared on the internet, Lithuanian curator immediately went on the internet and said, oh, by the way, we have a postcard with it, we can sell it.
Well,
That's
Emilia,
it. That's all. You can ask questions.
I want to finish with a sentence that I'm quoting you from an interview from 2009. You said, the only way to save ourselves during a depression is to start thinking again. So.
Don't comment on what I said.
Well, I want to thank you so much, and perhaps we have a few minutes for Q&A. Maybe we have 10, 15 minutes.
Maybe 5 or 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Molly can go around and take questions.
Any questions?
Usually when we work with students, when we teach, I said, now you can ask questions, but don't do it.
Thank you so much. I have a question. Do you still play music, the piano? And why did you switch from music to art or to visual arts?
How I switch?
No, why?
Why?
Did you switch?
You were born here, or you come to this country?
I was born in the United States, but I was raised in Venezuelan.
Okay. When I immigrated, it was 1973. I had like $125. I have some relatives who said, I have $15, we're gonna share. I didn't know what to do. I had a child, I had another child on the way. Teaching music was very difficult. I couldn't play as a pianist. I was classical pianist, concert pianist. Couldn't play because I always play my hand before. So I could teach. My alternative was teaching. I'm not gonna go into how I start teaching. It's complicated. And I decided, no way. So I learned Fabergé work. That was closest to me, which I could learn very easily, very fast, in 3 months. Ended up being one of the best experts on Fabergé, worked for Sotheby. Then Russian mafia come, that's actually a story different, and told me I have a choice. Either I leave the field or I have 2 daughters. I left. What I'm gonna do next, contemporary art. So I started working with the artists, Russian artists, Polish, American, and I study Americana also. And there was a lot of curiosity, a lot of energy, and desire to survive and to succeed. And then Ilya came, 1987 he came to the West. I went to meet him in Paris, and then he had his first exhibition here. And then I said, I can help you to work because I already know a lot of people, and I'm in the art anyway. And then we start working together, and the end up, you see me here.
Long story short.
I still work with music, okay? My grandson is a violin player. I said, I didn't make it, you're gonna make it. He is. He's in Syracuse Orchestra, concertmaster of Syracuse Orchestra, and first violin. Also works with computer and music. I work with music in our installation. I choose music, I work with the sound, so I still in music. Do I play? Sometimes.
I have a question. I'm wondering how you first came about the idea to use the image of an angel, where the angel came from.
I don't know, just, you know, it was before me, but Ilya started using angels. Angel as a positive influence in religion. Angel, which is savior. Angel, fallen angel, which he was angel before, but he fell and he's still an angel. There is a lot of images and a lot of ideas connected to this, but it's always positive, it's always saving. So when Ilya did album, one of the albums has a person who is sick, and when he is disappearing, he's dying or something happened, angel wings start coming on the screen, on the paper, slowly and more and more and more. When we start working together, it's connected to me, it's always connected to people. Any country I went through, and I went through a lot of countries, any place I work, I meet a lot of people. I absolutely convinced that everybody has something good about them. In the moment you need their help, they come as an angels and they help you. They come incidentally, or they just, that's the design of this world. We don't pay attention very often, but it's always happened. And so we work with angels. It's as simple as that.
We have time for one more question.
And it's not connected only to religion. I'm not a super religious person. I may believe, may not.
Hi, thank you. I was wondering if you could go back a little bit to the notion of the studio and talk a little bit about how that functioned in terms of a sovereign space within the context of the Soviet communist system. Can you talk a little bit about that? I'm just curious about how the studio functioned within that context of living in the Soviet Union.
How the studio function, how the idea of the studio functions in the context of the Soviet
He was working officially as children's book illustrator. That's how he made his living in Russia. It was safest place to work. All of the Malevich, all of them work doing illustration, because you didn't have to do government book, you didn't have to make official paintings, but you did what you want, and then you work like this. Ilya's studio, he was in basements and different places, and when he made some money, he built his studio himself. So studio belonged to him in Moscow. We give it to Tretyakov Gallery a few years ago, to build museum of Moscow conceptualism. I wanted to continue as Kabakov studio, but with contemporary young people, so they could come and continue tradition which Kabakov started. Young artists come, they show the work, people come, Ilya reads the albums before, friends, they eat, they drink a little bit, they talk. It's about conversation, it's about relationship, it's about building trust, and it's a cultural atmosphere. That's how it used to work when he was there. He stayed in the studio for 30 years. Then we give it to Moscow Institute, which work teaching curators, young curators. So the whole group of young Moscow curators come out of this institution. A friend of Ilya was a director. Then when we decided he couldn't continue because he got sick, and also because Russian mafia in Moscow wants to take over and make it a penthouse, because it's used to be the top of the building. And I decided, no way I'm going to let it go, so we give it to the government institution. Government immediately put some guards there, because door was to the studio broken 3 times. I went in 1990 to the studio. I took all the drawings and a collection of Ilya's books, illustration, which was his mother's collection, and I actually took it out of Russia. Ilya never let people, officials into the studio. There was a commission from government, from artist union, which used to come once a year to check if this artist doesn't, I don't know if there is no prostitutes, there is no drinks, that he really works in his studio. And he really works, so he hid his paintings somewhere in the kitchen. There was a little kitchen there, or covered them with something that was not finished work, and put something which was look like what you saw the painting, like Soviet paintings. They didn't get the irony of this. It's actually, he's laughing at them. They were thinking, okay, he said, that's an order for some factory. It's for a factory, red corner of the factory. They took it as a face value, that's it. That's how he functioned. He was afraid. He was always afraid that he's going to be arrested, that they will, at some point, somebody will talk. There were some people I discovered later who actually was declaring at him. Some of his friends were working for KGB. But obviously when he became famous, that was already when I came to the West in 1975, a lot of people were asking me if I can get them Kabakov. That was happening then. His work was already cost some money and it was in Swiss museums. So Russian government decides they're gonna have him. At some point, Swiss diplomat, the head of Nestle company, Ilya gave him paintings and albums to take out. And then after that, and there was another, they let him, and every painting from this period we have has a stamp, official stamp on the back saying, no artistic value. That's real. Then he was called by KGB, an artist union. They put him, said, sit down, his seat, and there was his painting on the wall. And they said, Kabakov, what do you think the Western are, why do you think Western are buying your art? And they said, maybe because they like it. And they said, no, you're too naive. They buy this art, bring it to the West, put it on the wall, bring their friends and said, look what kind of shit they produce in Soviet Union. That's how the studio worked in Kabakov times.
I think we should end it here.